All right, this is our brisket after 10 hours in the fridge. The convection of the cool air blowing off the brisket or the seasonings on it just does something. In my experience, again, this is one of the ways you get your bark to be on point. If you don't know what the bark is, just stay tuned and I'll show you after we're about 5-6 hours in on this cook. I'm getting ready to go outside, start a fire. I'll be back with you here shortly. All right, so let me show you what we got going on here. So I've got this little contraption is called a chimney starter. This particular brand is from Weber. I'm using lump charcoal today. I love lump because it burns hotter than regular charcoal. All lump charcoal is wood that has been oxygen deprived. They take the oxygen out of the process. They'll start a large fire, typically in a burn barrel. And then in the middle of the process, they put a top on, depriving that wood of oxygen. And here's the result. So typically the wood they're using in this would be your hardwoods, right? Post oak or the various different types of oak, mesquite, and any other hardwoods. Usually softer woods, as in fruit woods, don't usually fare well during this process. I like this because it burns hotter. The wood you just saw me cutting needs a catalyst to get it burnt. One of those things on my end, especially when starting a fire in this smoker, is making sure I have the right size of wood. I just went over that. So there's nothing on yet. Here shortly I'll put the brisket on and start this cook. I don't think it's gonna be a long cook. I think it should be 6 to 8 hours, which for some is long, but for me that's really a shorter cook because I'm used to cooking 10, 12, 15-pound briskets. Other than that, we'll be back. Thank you for tuning in. All right. So you know this lump charcoal's ready. When you have, of course you can see the orange, but you've got majority of the pieces at the top ashed over. Plus I feel the heat steading from right here. So I know this is ready to combust some full pieces of wood. Let me show you what I'm going to do. We're going to take it. Let's take it. That is absolutely hot. Here, this is what we're going to do. Got to get. Okay. So now we're going to take it, dump it. I usually stick to one side of smoker box, fire box. Stick to one side because I'll show you what I do with the rest of the wood. Set this here. All right. So now you see we have our coal bed. This is key in any smoker, no matter how large the smoker. You always want to maintain a hot coal bed. You got a hot coal bed, you'll have no issues with combustion. So now we're gonna come over here, take my glove off. We're gonna get my 2 best candidates. Usually when I'm starting a fire, I wanna go with a piece of wood I know is gonna burn over time. Something like that. It's got a little bark on it. And then something I know that's gonna take off as soon as I put it on the fire. I can tell by the density. Piece of wood, you can tell either it's gonna be dry, green, or something in between. I can tell just looking at this looks like a heavy piece of wood. It's got some feel to it. That's how I know it's got some moisture content in it. They may not be necessary for certain parts of the cook. And then I take this one, it looks light, and it is absolutely light. You can have wood and it looks like this, but still be green, and it's really heavy. All right, so we're gonna take it over here. I set it here. I get one piece on here. And I get another piece on here. You can already smell that wood combusting. So now what I wanna do, I use some tongs. I'm gonna take those tongs. I'm gonna scoot all these ashes over. What I wanna do, I'm gonna put me another piece of wood right here. And that's gonna be my wood next up. And I will continue doing this until my cook's done. But I preheat a piece of wood. I'm gonna set it right here. That wood will absolutely combust as soon as I roll it over on the fire. You have to be careful because the wood right here that I'm gonna put, matter of fact, let me grab a piece. We're gonna use this. This has some weight to it, but we got a hot coal bed, so really things are gonna start going for us fast. I'm gonna wait till this burns out. Create me some wood coals from the wood I'm using. This is hickory, and then we're gonna roll this one over. All right. Once that occurs, I'll be back. I'm back. You see, we got those 2 logs burning. I'm a bit of a time crunch because I started a little bit later than I wanted to. Sorry for that. We got a plane flying over. We got an airport right down the road. Yeah, so this is what I like to see. I like to see both logs, or even one log, if that's what I'm using, combusting the whole log. Not one part burning, one part not. That's how I know my coal bed is hot. You can look at the coal bed and see that it's hot. Let me show you what else I've got. Still got that piece of wood down here preheating. That is absolutely crucial. Now what you'll find is that when you have a green piece of wood that wants to just smolder, you can force it into action by preheating it. You'll see some pit masters place their wood on top of their smoker box. This is really hot. You know, I could put a pan up here and preheat that pan if I wanted to. The purpose of doing that is preheating that wood, so when I put it on the hot coal bed, we get absolute combustion. Nothing too hard, right? Now, we can get into temperatures and all that. Typically here in this firebox, you're gonna be 900, 1,000. They do have heat guns you can buy to check here, but we'll be high here to be low over here. And again, that may be another topic for another video. I also went ahead, I got me a water pan inside. This is to provide moisture. This brisket isn't the biggest, and it doesn't have that much fat content in between the muscles. So I want to do exactly everything I can do to preserve moisture in this environment. Water pan will allow me to do that. The way that works is, as the heat comes up from the firebox, it causes this to come to a simmer, if you will, and provide moisture. Now, the brisket. Currently, I've got what can be seen as the point toward the fire. Maybe that'll change when I wrap. Typically, my points are going to cook a bit faster than the flat. So what I'll do is, if I wrap this, then we'll come back into the smoker after the wrap, and we're going to put the flat end towards the fire. If you got any questions, just post them down below. Again, my goal here is to make this pretty easy, so you know all backyard cooks can do. One of the ways you know that you're cooking your brisket right over a few hours is look in your drip bucket. Should be a bit fuller. That's how you know you've started rendering fat. Other than that, the muncher holds. If you're looking, you ain't cooking. So my intent is to not come back and open this until about 3.5, 4 hours. I'll get back with you when that occurs, and I'll show you what other tools I'm using to get me through this cook. One other thing before I go is that usually I do this kind of the old school way. What do I mean by that? I'm not using no thermometer probes to track my temperature. The brisket's gonna do what it's gonna do. It's done when it's done. Sure, I can rush it. However, I found that if I take my time with this would be the best piece of meat you've ever had. Other than that, I'll get back with you when I make changes, when I check my fire. Later. So again, I've not done anything to the fire. You got complete combustion. You see the piece on the left is it's white. And then we have that big piece up top, sitting on top of the very top of the charcoal pile. It's doing its due diligence. Again, I won't manipulate or do anything to these coals of fire until I see my temperature's moving. That smoke that I was talking about, you don't see a whole bunch of white or black smoke coming out of there. It's clear. Now, when I roll a piece of wood over to the fire, you're gonna see smoke coming out of here. You're gonna see it. Give it a few seconds. It'll clear itself up. That's what I mean. And we just keep doing this till the brisket's done. Be back with you. All right, now we see our wood. It's just about out. Still providing a little bit of heat, and I know that because looking at the temperature gauge, but the temperature gauge is falling. So now here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna open it up. Then when I say roll another piece on top of this coal bed, that's what we're gonna do. That is really hot. Yep. You see that thing takes off as soon as I get it on there. That's what you want. Again, I'm not opening the cook chamber. This won't be open for another 3.5, 4 hours. Soon, when do I close the box? Actually, missing another step. I need to go grab another piece of wood. Come with me. And see now, what are we gonna be looking for? This is a little bit too light. We need something with some heft to it. This is what it's looking like. Now, see that thing is taking off. We get another piece back here, preheating. You'll also see me eventually manipulate this coal base. We'll be back. We do this until the brisket's done. Later. To spritz or not to spritz? That's the question. You'll find that most pit masters, depending on where you're at, there's a, there's not one real answer to the question to spritz or not to spritz. So you'll see the brisket I'm cooking, because of the size, because of the lack of fat content, I'm absolutely spritzing. Now, there are rules to this. I'm also rolling in my smoker with a water pan. Wood itself can hold on to moisture, hence the term green wood. You'll find out that some smokers, there's no need to spritz. There's no need to have a water pan. The moisture content in the wood is just enough. Now, typically in these smaller smokers, especially like the one I have, I'm speaking of the one that I have because that's the only one I can speak of. I know my smoker. I know what it takes to get it up and going. I also know when I need to add humidity in the form of a water bowl or water pan to the actual cook chamber itself. Now, sometimes it's based off the type of meat you're cooking. If you have no fat, then you might need to spritz. You might need to add a water pan. Excuse me for the sweating. I'm going in and out, and that's usually how my brisket cooks go. I'm here watching a little TV. I might get me a little cold drink. Here in Texas, where I'm at, it's pretty hot. It is about 9 o'clock in the morning. Brisket has only been on for about an hour. All right, but again, the question, to spritz or not to spritz. All right, so spritzing itself. Here shortly, I will show you what I use to spritz. Now, again, like I said, there are rules to this. When I spritz, usually it's when my bark is set. What do I mean by a set bark? I mean, I can go using the scratch test. I use my finger, I scratch the bark. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the salt and the pepper content to be rubbing off. If it rubs off, then I'm not ready to spritz. Because when I spritz, if my seasoning is not adhered to my meat, all it's going to do is wash out. It's going to knock off the seasoning off my brisket. That's the thinking here. Not too hard to understand. Real simple. I like to keep things simple, and I think most pit masters, for the most part, simplicity is a must. Now, you'll see most people wrap when they hit a certain temperature in the brisket. How do they know what temperature they hit? Well, because they use these little thing called pin instant thermometers. I've had several, I've broken several. I've got a new one, but again, we're not at the point where I need to be using that right now. And that's what I meant when I said earlier in this video, the old school way of cooking. You won't see any thermometers in my videos until, you know, especially when dealing with briskets, until hour 4, hour 5. But typically, even before I do that, this brisket needs to be the color and the bark needs to be set the way I want it. In smoking any meat, in grilling any meat, color is everything. So you'll see I like my briskets to be extremely dark. Some people refer to it as being a meteorite. It's not burnt, although it might look that way on camera, but it's delicious. I need that bark to be set. Anything I do to prematurely assist in setting that bark might actually mess that bark up. What do I mean by that? Wrapping. I wrap in foil or wrap in butcher paper before that bark set. Then we're in a steaming situation, which I don't necessarily want. Again, that bark's gonna wash out. So again, I do nothing until my bark is set. Pretty important. You'll see most people start spritzing and that inhibits the bark formation. Again, I won't spritz. I won't do anything to this brisket until the bark is set. I find that when my bark is set, the internal temperature of my brisket is usually around 165, 175, maybe on the high end 180. So it's been on for 6, 7, 8 hours, right? This is a smaller pit. I'm running cooler temperatures. In fact, you'll see where I set my brisket is actually in the cooler side of my pit. I can actually take my hand on the back side of my pit, place it there and leave it there for a few minutes, the cooler side. Again, this is a smaller brisket. I don't want to burn it. I don't want to dry it out. I'm doing everything possible to ensure that my smoke content, my moisture content is still there. We're going to render some fat. That fat in your mouth, that's the perceived, so fat is flavor, fat carries flavor, but that fat in your mouth, when you bite into that brisket, that's that moisture. You know, it's also, again, carrying flavor, carrying smoke flavor. Other than that, I'll be back with you when we have some updates on this brisket. Again, I'm not doing anything into this brisket till at least 3.5, 4 hours in. I'll be back with you.